Yeah, hey everyone, thanks for joining in. So for today's call's agenda, we have like 6 different items to work on. So first we'll start with the application demo, and then we'll talk about how the analysis part is taking place in the application, basically around how the code is submission, algorithm is being submitted, stored, and the analysis is being run. Then we'll walk through the front end and back end code, and then around the test coverage results, like what all files we have covered and what are remaining, and what's the current status for that. And then we'll talk about the AWS deployment strategy too. Does this sound good to everyone? Okay. So maybe I'll ask the team to take the lead on this, and maybe we can start with the application demo now.
Okay, I can show the demo.
Yeah.
Just want to confirm. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's also been hosted on the server. I send it on the Slack, so you can test it out by yourself.
Cool.
So this is the homepage that we have created. I just took up random points that I feel are fun to say. So I've just taken about our story, research, news, and events in the sources. And if you click on it, you'll probably go to the respective pages. And then this was the goal of our PV validation hub. So just mentioning that. And then the community, company, blog, and resources also take you to the respective pages again. I mean, you can either press join today or contact us will basically let you email. I don't know whom to email, so I put my own email address. So this contact us is just a placeholder for my email, but I can change it later. The join today will take you to the register page, or you can either go there. Yeah.
I don't know how exactly we want to capture this. I guess this is going to be items for future development, Duncan. But
okay.
We certainly don't want to limit people's options when they come to the website to simply either joining or contacting, right? We do expect an important class of users to be people who are just coming and okay, so at the top we can see kind of dashboard.
Yeah.
Right. So submission profile, that would only be for logged in users,
yeah,
right? So I assume
that'll be like this.
Right. So I guess what we're missing here is the user experience for folks who are not expected to be submitting algorithms.
Yeah, they're not going to. So this is currently the user experience for not submitting the algorithm, correct? Yeah.
But it seems like it's focused around users who are submitting algorithms. Is that correct?
If they want to submit, they can register themselves. But if they don't want to submit, they can just go to the analysis set. They can go through each analysis set and go to the data, which they can't see because they don't want to submit anything. The leaderboard that's actually there and the rules that's going on.
Got it.
But submission and discussion also will be close. Yeah.
Got it. I think this really is, I guess, kind of a user experience kind of comment rather than a core functionality comment. It's just, I think what I'm seeing now, it's kind of, I think it's what should I put this? It's funneling people too much into joining as a submitter rather than engaging with the website as somebody who is seeing the various analyses. So this is something that we'll have to, and again, I think this is likely a comment for future development, not feedback for the team to change before the end of the project period.
This does match our initial intent, but now that we were actually really got our hands into it, it's certainly an improvement that we'd want to make.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the pieces are there, but we will want to think a little bit about redesigning that user experience. And I'm assuming that, given the way this is set up, it'll be fairly easy to rearrange site elements to do that. Yeah. Okay.
You can just remove the submission profile, and then login and register also can be removed. So basically, that'll look like it's just like 2 buttons that you have to just remove it later on.
And I think what we'll likely have here, so PV Validation Hub, rather than join today, right? It's going to be like see the analyses, right? Right. And again, you're not jumping directly to a dashboard because a dashboard is a subpage under the analysis, right? So dashboard is actually the wrong title for the link at the top. right? Because these are
Okay.
analysis. These are not sets. Again, we're going to have to.
Okay, rename
we will
everything.
have to
Okay.
be technically correct with all the naming, and I get that was not an expectation from the CMU side. So, Mike, is this all sounding right to you? These comments?
Yes. Yeah, I agree with what you've been saying.
Okay. So yeah, I think main takeaway here is we will want to think about naming and user experience, but as long as it's fairly easy to change those things with the tool set that we're being handed off, then I don't see an issue at this point. Does that sound right?
And then is someone recording these future
So,
development goals like this?
I've got a notes pad open here that as we're going through and talking, I am typing at the speed of lightning, or at least as close to lightning as my fingers can humanly get.
Okay. And then later in the call, we should revisit the list and ask ourselves if we know how to make those changes.
Yeah, for the naming changes, I certainly know how to make those. They'll have a block in the React code. You literally just change that one spot and it handles the name. Done.
Yeah. Great. Cool. Thank you. Just wanted to kind of record that. So sorry to interrupt. Please continue, Akshan.
So yeah, I already went through the place where you won't be. I mean, it basically you won't be logged in, but you basically can see most of the items, the number of submissions, the entries, the score, and the rank that has been there. The data, the leaderboard. Leaderboard is not there for this because there was no submission. Let me go to a different one. So leaderboard is there in this. Roles in submissions is also not there. So we can log in from any page that you're currently in. I've just deactivated this for because you have not logged in yet. So let me register a person.
A comment here, the leaderboard as being shown does not reflect the fields or the schema that we had agreed on for the leaderboard. Is that still a placeholder?
There was the schema that was given to.
That's not what we documented. We can go back and look at it, but we discussed it's we're going to have error, you're going to have runtime, you're going to have data requirement.
That's in the submissions, right? Error and.
No, that is for the leaderboard.
If the leaderboard has errors, then you won't be able to actually see. It won't be a leaderboard if it has errors. If that makes sense, because submissions will be what you've submitted, and then they'll have the errors. But leaderboard will be the one that will actually be the developer group or developer names with their submissions.
So again, the submission stuff that's going to be private. That's only if you're logged in, you get to see any of that stuff. So I think we also, again, we're going to rethink that. We're not going to show that unless you're logged in, right? So I think we need to make sure we capture that. It's going to be a UX thing, but no. Actually, very clearly, what we have been describing as the public-facing leaderboard needs to include those things we described, as well as the ability to rank based, like change the ordering, right? We described a interactive, essentially database view. And it includes all the fields that we discussed that was part of this. So it is not there. And in fact, core to the idea of this project is that there's not just one metric that you can provide a single ranking on. So it's the idea of a single leaderboard is actually kind of meaningless within the context of the project.
Okay,
but it sounds like this was not.
You can.
Sorry, it sounds like this was actually something that needs to be fixed. This is not just a placeholder for something that was known that was going to be dropped in. So we definitely need to mark this as an issue.
Okay.
Yeah, this needs to have the schema that we discussed that includes, it's you'll have a developer group, right? That again, that's going to link to a developer page, but then you're also going to show the high level rolled up single error metric that is public. That's different from the broken out, more complete error metrics that people get in their private views, right? That's one of the things we discussed. But also, again, we specifically called out runtime and data requirements as being necessary components of the public facing leaderboard page. And in fact, this was a big part of why we're not just asking Kaggle to host it for us, because Kaggle can do that already.
Okay. I can add those two fields. I can
Okay.
definitely add those two fields. Yeah.
Yeah, so we just want to make sure that those are going to be linked correctly and that this view is going to show the right things from the backend database, right? Okay.
Yes. So let me just register again.
I'll make a note to send you because I wrote down this list as Bennett was talking as well, so I'll send that onto our Slack channel as well, so you can get these notes as well.
Yeah.
And so that register and sign in, that's like fully functional register and sign in. That-
Yes, you can it'll even validate whether you put the right password or not, and if
Oh.
you're not put the right password.
Cool. So you guys managed to get that in there. I didn't expect the full sign in experience to be set up. that's cool.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So,
sorry, real quick, can you explain the upload analysis button?
so this is the I mean, if you click on the upload analysis, you basically can write the summary overview and dataset description and rule set and upload the actual analysis _1 dot zip, which will be uploaded.
Okay, so this is for setting up. So this is an admin feature, correct?
It needs to be because we don't have an admin group in our database yet. I thought I'll just add it for now. But you can you can use the rules for setting up whether it should be admin or the developer. It's just one.
A comment here. I think admin user can set up analysis set from the backend side. Like the Django framework will have a admin page for that to do. I mean, to do the add analysis set or something. I believe it's doable. Like not
Okay,
from.
well, so I guess the main point here is that this is not something that, so you're showing what looks to be like kind of a normal person who has just registered with the site, and they absolutely should not have the ability to upload an analysis and an analytical task, right?
Sweet. So a normal user doesn't have that ability. So we would have
No,
the
no,
developer
no.
user.
This is the people that can do this that we're looking at here are myself, Mike, Kirsten, Kevin at this point. That's
Yeah, so we can add a role for those the roles, and then we can specifically do that to
Okay.
manage the button. It's just it's again a place. You can actually make it's a placeholder again, but you like UA said, you can probably do it at the back end. But I just made it more easier so that you can actually do it on the front end too. It's just
Okay.
my thought. Yeah.
Okay, so we're more likely going to be interacting with it through the back end. I mean,
back
that
end,
makes
if
more
you-
sense to me because we're going to want to be doing like markdown documents for these things rather than just
Correct.
like filling in kind of text forms.
Correct. You can probably make this as a proper markdown documenting. The summary is just a box, but you can actually make it as a markdown document entrance here.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. We'll want the ability to use markdown documents in those.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we'll want to see what that is, the documentation of the handoff on what that looks like in the Django backend stuff. But okay, so this is an option for a front end way
to improve it,
potentially
yeah.
to do it. Okay. So yeah, I mean, we'll definitely need to make sure this is not visible to
Yeah,
much anybody.
so I can actually hide it for now. I can hide it in the. I mean, it's just a second to hide it, but I can
Okay.
hide it if So
I probably wouldn't
Okay.
put it there either. There'd probably, I'm imagining like for the admin role, there'd be a whole other tab or
Right.
something. That would be accessible
Yeah.
once you log in.
okay.
Yeah, I would just think that, yeah, there's some sort of administrator tab or page that you would start from for that role that would have stuff like this. Yeah, I think that's correct.
Okay, let me just. Oh no.
And are these analyses, zips you're showing here, are these based on the example that Kirsten provided?
It's there on the data on the PV Hub. I think your Mengdi uploaded it, so I just took it from there on the S3 bucket.
So Mengdi, are these things that we're looking at here, are these based on Kirsten's code, or is this some other placeholder?
Just placeholder, as I mentioned in my documentation.
Just a placeholder. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we
So once it's
have Kirsten's example implemented at all for the handoff, or no?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay, the hope was definitely to be able to show that working, at least as a demo, in the kind of expected form that we would need to run it. I don't know how close we are to being able to do that, but that was an expectation for the handoff.
Yeah. So to incorporate her data set and code, maybe we need to make some modifications on our worker.
I see. Need to make modifications to the worker.
Yeah, because I think her function definition is kind of different from my functions. So and there are some difference.
Right. So figuring out the details of how to get that integrated with your system is kind of an important part of this final bit of technology transfer, I think. So yeah, I think maybe if there was questions there about how to do that, please do, reach out to me or Kirsten directly to provide assistance. But I think this is a pretty critical part of the project.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that over the past few Fridays we had brought that up a few times, and I thought we'd had that sorted out. So are we not entirely in alignment on that where that was at? Didn't we make adjustments on how the algorithm that when you have the upload and everything comes in? Because I remember we discussed that a couple of Fridays that I thought the adjustments that we made there should have been able to handle now with Kirsten's code.
Well, my concern is that it doesn't sound like those adjustments were being done in response to looking at Kirsten's code. So can somebody from the team acknowledge whether anybody actually got hands-on with that code that Kirsten supplied?
I don't think we did that.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like it was utilized by the team. I do have to say that is a bit of a problem.
But yes, we'll work on that, and maybe we can
Okay.
deal with that too. But the team, just
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So hopefully this is something we can achieve fairly quickly. I guess my concern is I don't know how close we are to being able to do that, and it doesn't sound like we have a good sense of that right now. So maybe getting some doing some work to think about that before. I know we're going to have a follow-up meeting, right? Friday morning. Is that correct? So maybe we can take this as an action item to think about in before Friday and table it for now.
yes, we can.
Okay.
Team,
Great.
any
Thank you.
concerns about that?
Yeah, I think I can work in on it.
Okay.
And again, the expectation here is not to figure stuff out on your own. If there's anything that's confusing or a question, I have to, my ability to make myself available between now and Friday morning is going to be limited, but Mike is on the call. If you need help getting a hold of Kirsten and want to discuss things with her, let's figure that out and plan what we need to plan over the next couple days.
Yes, Bennett, we'll work on that, and apologies for the miscommunication or something. We'll work on it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll continue. So this is the leaderboard where you can upload. Before you couldn't see the upload algorithm because you were not logged in. Now you can actually upload the algorithm. This is the rule, and the submissions are not. No one has submitted yet. So once I submit onto this, this is the submission as the placeholder submission again. So once I submit this, there'll be a submission here which is in the status of running. It's submitted, so it's still running. And you can download the algorithm, and execution time will be updated once you actually execute. Time and score will be updated once this has been completed. So you can actually see if I log out and log in as a user test, you can actually see that status.
And just to
this
confirm, if you were to log in as a different user, you would not see this anymore, right? Because
this you
is a
won't see,
user.
but you'll see that person's, which is actually like because you can see the leaderboard, right? The user test and
Right.
user test. Those persons
Got
you
it.
can actually see.
I see.
So I can. So the discussion again, a placeholder. It is completely being implemented. Only the backend has not been implemented. You can add comment like. Let me do this. But since it's not saved in the backend, oh, I think I broke the code. I'll repair that. I'm sorry. Huh. Interesting. I didn't expect that. Okay, I think there's something wrong with the discussion. I can fix that. It's a small change, but this is the submissions page. There's a leaderboard rules. And then once you see, this is the submission metrics that you have been submitted. But again, this is a placeholder since I was not given the data for how long it has been done. So you can actually see the submissions that has been done within a week. Those are successful submissions, the error submission, the total number of points you've actually gotten over the entire week.
Sorry, I missed it. What did you click on to get to this view?
This is the submissions. This is your submissions for the entire week. You can actually. So if you go to dashboard and then you go to submissions from there.
Okay, got it. So this link is a profile-specific view summarizing things that profile has done.
Yes.
Okay, I think, I mean, I would see this as maybe a sub-page under profile. Again, maybe this is just a user experience thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And then this is the profile which you can actually see of the developer, full name, email address, and user ID and GitHub. So.
Got it. Is this profile, sorry, is this profile what is intended, I guess?
For that person.
All right, for that.
The person logged in. You can also probably.
So this is going to be likely what we're thinking is going to be the information that's going to be visible when you like see who submitted what as a public user.
Correct. When you click on that person,
like
I'll probably link it to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all. So I'll just show you the.
And again, I just want to double check. Fairly easy to change like the specific fields and everything that we're seeing here. So like when we're looking at the user, we're not only going to be able to change content, but also change the actual structure of that user page, the profile page. Is that correct?
I didn't catch that question again. Can you come again?
So I wanted to double check that all of these things are going to be changeable after the handoff. So
yes, it's all
for the profile page, not just being able to obviously fill in different content, but change what fields are being selected.
Yes.
All that kind of stuff is going to be fairly easy to change.
Yes, it's a configuration. Cool. Yes.
Got it.
And even the leaderboard is a configuration change. It's basic. I can show you I'm going to show the code in some time. So leaderboard is also a configuration change, which is basically a list of things that you want and where you want to align it. So whatever is there in the submission can be moved onto the leaderboard. So something like that. So I can show how the code works so that it's easier. For some reason, the discussion is not working. I'll fix that. It was working on my local host. I'll just see what is happening in the server. So that's the demo from my side. Let me just. So this is the entire architecture for the front end, which is basically. So on the high level overview, as soon as the user enters, he'll just see the homepage. and we'll be able to give him login, registered, submission profile, and dashboard. So each, so the high level component, so basically all of these are components, and anything that you see in a circle is actually a service. So you can, if once you call a login, it'll actually call a validation service and then the user service, which basically calls the API to the backend. The same thing happens with the registered. Submission does the same thing, but actually gets the fake data because we have not actually implemented it. So it is for a placeholder with the fake data, but the profile is actually implemented. So it calls the user service with the API again.
This document's uploaded onto GitHub too, correct?
I'll upload it because I wrote it down like a few minutes ago to explain. I thought I'll upload it once it's done.
Yeah, this is precisely the kind of document I was talking about when I was wanting to have the more advanced, like each like individual service breakdown. This is precisely what I was talking about. This is perfect. I love this here.
And just want to double check, please do, if you can, share it both in like a compiled and an editable form.
Yes.
Right, because I know, like, as we're talking about user experience design changes, we will change this, and we're going to want to do revisions on this document as we make those changes.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Cool.
I can
Thank you.
upload the draw.io. Yeah. So again, the dashboard will be called by the from the homepage. You can go to the dashboard, which will actually have the upload analysis and the view analysis. The upload analysis opens up a model, which makes a post request and then creates an analysis output, which can be viewed back to the analysis again. Once you have spawned, the analysis actually first calls the information API, which calls the API analysis/analysis ID and gives the data back to overview, rules, and the data, which can be populated based on the information that's been given. Again, we'll be from analysis. You can either go to overview, data, leaderboard, submission, rules, or discussion. I forgot to fill up the submissions. I was working on it. It populate. So if most of this are basically populated by the endpoints, and then except for discussion, which is actually being populated by fake data. This is the call for the discussion. It can be changed however you want, but discussion basically has a comment provider, which is like a context in React. We create a user context, and then it uses the same context for all the comment, reply, and the comment and reply that have been given. So based on the user that has been logged in and the analysis ID that you have given, it'll create a context and supply that context to comment and reply. But since we are using fake data, I'll first call the fake data and give the populate the data. So this is the entire structure of my front-end code. Now I can walk through the front-end code. If you have any doubts in that thing, I can clarify before I.
And maybe you can zoom in a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any questions on it at this point. Duncan, Mike?
I'm good.
I don't have any specific questions at this point.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, this is the entire front-end code again. Let me just close everything.
All right, so for uploading the analysis part that we've got here on the front end, let's go take a little bit more look in depth on that part. Because that should be also
the upload submission or analysis.
Upload submissions and analysis. Actually,
Okay.
we're gonna probably want to take a look at both of those because those are both things I know Bennett is has his core interests in, and I want to focus in on the stuff that he cares most about while we have him here.
Yeah. So this is the upload analysis model, which you can actually see.
Mhm.
So basically, it creates let me just close this. Yeah, so you can see it actually created the model has, once the model has been called, the entire form has been created using this. So this is the exact form. Suppose if there's an error or that has been done, it basically shows the error. But if it doesn't, it automatically closes the container because it's a handle submit. So what exactly happens is it takes in text fields for your analysis form values and all basically the description, the long description, the data set description, and the rules, and then you start uploading the file.
Okay.
Once you upload the file, you basically have a you have a button which you click on to upload the file, which basically calls the handle submit function.
Okay, and this
Uh,
all sends it through the Django API and saves it into our database, or where how is the submission process
Yeah,
saved
so I
once
send it
we
through a
upload it?
multi-part. Yeah, I do a multi-part upload to the API, and then that streams it to S3 server. That's what I think
Okay.
it's there. That'll be explained in the backend, I believe, by Mehdi and UA.
So another question on that. So currently, when you are creating a new analysis, despite you start with all the descriptions, right, and the rules and all that stuff, and then the actual meat of it is in that the zip file, right, that
Yes.
you are uploading, and so that is intended to have both the Python script that defines how to execute the submitted functions as well as the data sets itself. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So currently we would just kind of package it all right together in the same kind of local folder. And now, does that get parsed and saved separately? Do the files themselves get pushed off to a different database, or is it all just kind of just shoved in an S3 bucket together?
I think Mehdi can answer that.
Yeah, the whole zip file would be uploaded to the S3 bucket.
Okay. Okay.
And I recall, yes, we think we did talk a little bit more about that. That was where you had essentially the naming scheme for it, and the S3 matches the database entry, and it's named off of the related database entry for consistency. So that way, when it gets recalled again in the worker, you're pulling off of that same name, correct? That same ID?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so we were using S3 essentially instead of a NoSQL, and essentially having the name match up with our SQL system, so that way we can save essentially NoSQL data, but we're using S3 to do it.
So I think my one possible question about this, Mike, I'm wondering if we might be needing the use case where data is essentially reused. I think, if we're talking about some of the high fidelity modeling stuff that we've been discussing, I could see it maybe a situation where we're generating like a large data set of synthesized data, like, I don't know, maybe hundreds of systems or something, that's acting as kind of like a data pool that different analysis could target. Does that seem like something? I'm curious what you think about that, Mike.
I hadn't thought that through before this moment. I mean, I could imagine us doing that.
Because we had discussed kind of
like it gets generated for each problem individually.
Yeah. I suppose if it's synthetic and hopefully it doesn't, I mean, I guess it depends on things like latency for, yeah, I guess it's just a trade-off.
Like reusing data, would we be able to reuse the data from one person's submission to the next person's submission? We definitely want to do that, I think.
That's not a problem. I think that's what we
Okay.
have now. Right. My question is whether we ever think that we need to be sharing data between analyses. Right now, we're talking about having every analysis be essentially a self-contained zip file with code and data.
Well, setting aside the synthetic data, it does seem likely, right, that like we want to have the shared resource of one of our well-validated systems, for example, that might
Right.
get used in multiple different analyses. And we could repeat it, but that's
right.
not as nice.
So I guess question, Duncan, is so it is likely, right? We'll have some. Imagine, Duncan, one of those systems we looked at outside of NREL that's well instrumented. One of those might be a data source that we're using for validation, and we might we might have a bunch of those and we might want to share them between different analyses. Are we causing problems for ourselves by enforcing data duplication for each analysis?
So it depends on the structure of the analysis and how we want to get the references set up. If we've got data that could potentially be duplicated, we could add in a system for referencing that if it needs to have a shared data point, add that as an element in the schema for each of these data items that, hey, you have, this is the primary analysis, this is supplementary data that's needed for the analysis, and then we can have that supplementary data saved, and then we just reuse that same reference wherever it's needed. So that way it'll be like, all right, we need analysis supplement number 5, grabs number 5, and whether it's using analysis 1, 2, 3, or 4, and they all need supplement number 5, they all call supplement 5 and grab it.
Yeah. So that sounds exactly right, Duncan. And I think in terms of categorizing this feature request, we'll call it, it seems to me that what we have here as a placeholder, right, as uploading a zip file, perfectly reasonable as the kind of prototype version 0 that we're looking at the handoff here. And as long as we can think about and plan for a path towards possibly a more nuanced data management scheme, then I think we're good for now.
Oh yeah, certainly. This is something, what they've got right now is something that can certainly be added to and evolved into a more advanced nuance. It will just take some planning and careful implementation, but when done right, it would do exactly what we want.
Okay, cool. Great, thank you. So yeah, I don't think this is not a problem that needs addressing before the end of the project. Again, this is a future development. Cool.
You're on mute, Akshin.
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm sorry. So the components folder basically contains all the subcategories that you want inside the analysis. So basically, all the components are analysis, the dashboard. The global components are nothing but the header, the app table that I've created that you can use either for submissions or for the leaderboard, which can be modified as well as you want. And then the blurry page is basically what you see when the user is not set in the cookie. When the user is not set, you basically see the blurry page. As soon as you log out, you basically see the blurry page. This is the footer.
Oh, that's like the placeholder for submissions when you're not logged in?
Yes.
Is that right?
That's the blurry. Yeah, that's the blurry page.
Okay.
You can.
I think we may have mentioned this. I think from a UX perspective, I'd prefer maybe just hiding the whole page if they're not logged in. But yeah.
Yeah, I can do that too. Yeah.
Okay, cool. But yeah, also a cool idea. I don't know, Mike, Duncan, if you have any thoughts on that, but it seems to make a little more sense to me to not have it. Or do we want another nag for people to? I'm not sure a explicit goal of the website is to convert people who are going there to look in the leaderboard to submitters. Like, I think if that was something we really were anxious to do, we would have lots of kind of paths that feed you back there like this. But
I would probably go for a somewhat more subtle approach, but that might be a little bit harder to implement. So you know how we've got each of the tabs? Just orient it that, like, you know, you'd have all user accessible tabs first, and then the ones that aren't user accessible, you could have the tab but with a little like lock icon on it. So that way it's like, hey, you know, you already can see right off the bat, don't even bother with those because you're not signed in, and you don't actually have to click on it and then have this big in your face sign in for this. You can look at it and be like, yeah, lock, got it, done.
Yeah, and it does gesture to the kinds of things you would see if you decided to become a registered user. So yeah, that's a nice way to do it.
Yeah, I can try implementing that.
I think our biggest focus, especially with the little bit of time left, would probably
Yeah.
be trying to get the Kirsten's code part sorted out. And if
Bingo.
the entire focus is on that, and we get that is the biggest thing. And then everything else are just like, we don't have much time, honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please forgive me. Some of this is thinking through, like, what we're going to do next as well. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So tab panel is basically an implementation for each tab. So it's a place where it's like the global component for all the tabs that you have. So basically, the analysis will be a set of tabs that you have. So the data, which is basically the data component that you're seeing, and the discussion is where I basically place a discussion, but it's not working. I'll make it work, and before giving it, there's some issue. I don't know. I'll probably fix it. Leaderboard is leaderboard was the one that we had. So the main thing that you can see, this is completely configurable. Where I create the app table. So I create a ranking number and then create it by the algorithm. So this is, instead of this, I probably can I can add more. Basically, all I have to do is something like copy this, and then you can even format the value based on how you want it. Suppose I want the execution date. And you can keep the minimum width to whatever you want. It'll probably be lesser than 350, but you can format the value, like you can remove that. So let's just split date dot split at the end. So this will be your value dot split. So because it'll be a string, you'll just need the first part of the date, which is this is basically the formatting of that value that you need. So this is all that needs to be done. I can implement based on whatever it needs to be done for the leaderboard, since it was requested. I can do that. So this is the only thing I have to make, probably. Then we have the overview tab, which again gives the entire overview of what basically is in the rules tab. All of this will probably be in micro directory command that you said you'll probably input an MD file, which will automatically take the input and display it like that. The overview, the rules, and the data will take the MD file and do that. And then the submission exactly like the leaderboard, but it'll have different set of columns. So this is the column configuration, and then I'm just setting the app table again. And then the analysis is the main component, which is for setting up the tabs, and then the whether to show the button or not. And then it opens up the model when you add the upload algorithm, upload a submission or something. And this is the entire page for the analysis only. So this is all that is there. So this is all about the analysis. And then for the dashboard page, where probably the naming convention, like Bennett said, might not be right. Dashboard is the set of cards that you can actually see. So each card is basically it's rendered as like this. You can add a card header, card media, and then the content. And then
just to make sure I'm understanding.
Container with the set of cards that you want to display.
Right. So this is the analysis summary page we're looking at.
I can't hear.
Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you. I'm not sure. Akshan, is your...
Oh, okay. I think it was my bad. I'm sorry.
Okay, so you can hear me. So try again, Bennett.
Can you hear me, Akshan?
Yes.
Okay. So sorry, I just want to double check. What you're showing here that is labeled dashboard, this is the analysis summary page, right?
The set of cards that you saw.
Right. It's the collection of all the analytical tasks.
Correct. This is the
Okay. So analysis summary page. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. The summary of the analyses. Sorry. Back to the analysis.
Yeah.
So we went over this. So one thing I have not seen is the expanded report for the user on their submission.
This is the one. Which page are you talking about? I'm not very.
Well, so I'm thinking that we don't have
We're
it
not-
captured. I think it might be missed. So we had discussed how there's going to be private information for the user that comes back from when they run a submission on an analysis, right? There's a private report that gets generated. It's the higher quality, higher fidelity information about how that validation run went. And so we need a way and we need a mechanism for transmitting, storing, and displaying those.
The submission page is for that, right? The analysis ID, the score that they have gained, and then the submission date and the execution time that they got, and the status of whether it's submitted.
Right. So this is a summary of submissions. So if you could then click on a submission and read an extended report, I think we would have captured that requirement. That extended report would be fed information held in a database that is the output, an extended, richer set of outputs from the analysis than what we described, what you currently had here, that I said actually goes in the leaderboard page, which is execution time, data requirements. That's the public-facing stuff. Again, we described an extended set of feedback that would be available only to the user. So it sounds like it sounds like we missed some communication here, and that it got interpreted as a leaderboard that just shows a simple ranking, and then a submission page that also showed execution time and some status stuff. But if we go back to the original project requirements, we'll see that all of the execution time, data requirements, that's the public facing, and then there is a as yet undefined set of larger feedback items that will be coming out of each analysis. That's still to be designed on an analysis by analysis basis by, again, Mike, myself, Kirsten, and Kevin, but we need some mechanism for capturing and returning that.
So if you want, I can, the page that you're currently seeing, I can probably expand that row so that you can actually have detailed analysis of like the whatever you want. How big will that analysis actually be? Like, will it be an entire big page or the detailed?
It will be, I mean, shot in the dark here. Mike, if you have any thoughts on this, please feel free to share them. But shot in the dark here, it would be something like 1 or 2 pages of like formatted output.
Okay.
Right? That may have, I would imagine, something like a pre-canned document where there's like sections and things written, and then like some values and possibly charts get filled in.
Okay.
And
okay. Then I think this can probably go to the submission, and then it can have a tab of submissions. I guess I'm not very sure how to do that.
So it doesn't sound like this is a feature that we're going to expect to have at handoff at this point, right? Because I think it's probably too late to start this now. Is that the feeling?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. 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 So with that in mind, I guess, again, the question then returns to, given that this is a feature that we're going to need for the final product, I guess, is there anything that does need to be done before handoff to enable that future development?
I can probably create I can probably add a link to each submission so that it points to a different page, like how you, so that you can add whatever you want, like how it's shown as submission page. You said it'll have multiple discussions, so it'll be similar to this for each page that you actually, but it'll be basically like this, but it'll actually be for per submission.
That's a great guess. So modeled off of this as a template and placeholder, you'd have this on exactly as a per submission basis. That'd be exactly right. Perfect.
Yeah. So list of submissions. You click on a submission, it redirects to a page like this for that submission.
Correct. Okay, and then then we'll get in afterwards and figure out how to fill in non-dummy data, but we'll figure that out. Okay. That sounds good. That sounds good.
Let me just write it down. Can I also get the rows for the leaderboard that I have to add, like just so that I can, if anyone can send me on the Slack group so that I'll know what rows can I be should I add on the leaderboard? Because I'm not
Okay,
very
this
sure.
is the roles. This is what we were talking about earlier with like developer versus
Yes.
admin versus user.
No, not the role. I mean, I'm sorry about the columns that's needed in the leaderboard.
Ah, sure. I mean, I think we documented that in a schema document.
In the schema document, the leaderboard had just 3 rows. That's why I just added these which was not.
Ah. So can somebody share what schema we did have documented? Is that possible? Can we take a look at that?
Yeah, this is the schema that was there. So the leaderboard had analysis ID, the group of developers, and the submission. So I thought the submission must be the link to that submission.
Interesting. This isn't what I thought I remembered finalizing and discussing.
The submission has the things that I put in the submission. That the reason I did this was
I
based
see.
on this.
Yeah, this is not what I remember finalizing. The submission, again, as we just discussed, needs to have more entries than this. And I mean, execution time, data requirement, and metric field, that's what we're calling the error. That all needs to be in the leaderboard.
Okay.
And a group of, so on the leaderboard, you have analysis ID, group of developer profile, and group of submission. Okay. Yeah, and so then the idea again is that the leaderboard is not static. Hopefully that's clear, right? So
Okay,
it's
got it.
intended to be a dynamic piece of software that allows you to change the ordering, right? So click by execution time, click by error.
Got it.
That kind
Yeah,
of
I can change that. I got that.
Okay. So I think that's it. But then we'll need the ability to be able to, I mean, some sort of just arbitrary extra, like rich, I don't know, like rich, analysis feedback fields to capture kind of whatever else needs to come out, some unstructured blob of information that we get out of the script for each one that we would use to then generate the submission specific expanded detail page.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So then I guess Tomo, can you update these schema drawings appropriately?
Sure. I can do it.
Okay, great. Interesting. Okay. Great.
Yeah. So that was about the leaderboard. So the analysis is done. The dashboard is done. The global components. The homepage is basically a set of blob of data that we actually need. We probably can make this more configurable by actually changing this, by adding a configurable file for this. But I have set it up a static page for homepage, but we can definitely make it configurable. Yeah. After that, we have the login page, which basically does the verification, the validation, and then the submit handler, which basically submits after the validation and sends to the login, redirects you to the dashboard.
Can we focus in on submission next? I'm not sure how Bennett you're doing for time, but
Yeah.
let's try and target
The submission as in which submission, because the dashboard submission.
Let's look at the analysis submission and then dashboard submission. Let's go through both submissions.
Yes. So the submission is actually here. It's basically the set of it's the columns of whatever has been added, the analysis ID, result, submission, execution time, and status, and the algorithm. And
okay,
then
cool. And so anything that we'd want to add for submissions, we can actually add into this file here to handle that.
Correct.
So it looks
You
like
just-
we just add a new object in into our array of objects.
and you can format it however you want.
Cool.
And then this is for that row of tables. But if you want to go to the submissions page that you actually see the bar chart, I have created multiple charts that you can use, bar chart and pie chart. But probably I've just used bar chart for explaining what it is. So submission.jsx basically has multiple cards for displaying the details that we have. It's all static. It's all fake data. So I'm not getting any data from the backend for this. So it's completely fake data. So this can be modified for us. So this can be more like per user based. Per submission based page, the submission page. So and then you can actually have you can change the card summary based on what you want. So this is just basically having what card content will have, but you can definitely change based on what you want. And then the bar chart.
Wondering if long-term implementation we could have to be able to enable more dynamic stuff with cards to keep a certain core amount of card information saved into the database, and then it can be referenced. Like if we're going to have per user differences between cards, there's going to be per user essentially specified information and results data that could then be pulled for that. Is that how it's currently pulling its data? Is it like hitting the API, like hitting our API?
It's hitting a function which basically this is actually hitting the function in services, which is basically submission services. So you get this is basically calling those. So instead of this, you can actually call an API instead.
Okay, so we would have that hit our API route and then have the API route hit the database so we can bring in the relevant information for the cards. Okay, yep, got it.
So, and then we have each service basically is dashboard service, which uploads the analysis leaderboard, gets the information on the leaderboard. It basically does all the API calls that you want.
So sorry, I'm going to break in real quick. This is something I was starting to think, and what you're saying here is kind of driving this home. I do have some concerns about kind of the naming that was chosen for all of this right now. There's like clashes in terms of naming convention, right? Like submission means two different things. Leaderboard means two different things. Even getting inside, whether, which is correct. Like we shouldn't have the word submission both mean a page in which you're seeing kind of a summary of a whole bunch of user specific data, as well as a specific like blob of like the actual code that gets uploaded. Does that make sense? So like we're using, when we're moving fast, I'm not sure, right? Is leaderboard now, is that referring to something that has to do with this summary page, or is this having to do with like a leaderboard view of a particular analysis? Seems very hard to document it accurately with the naming clashes that we're seeing here.
So I mean, the component that you're actually seeing are what you can actually visually see on the page that you see. Like the analysis is actually the entire each analysis that you go to, like the card that you click is basically a component that goes into the analysis, and inside the analysis you have multiple components. So you're actually, when you close the analysis, when you open the analysis, you can see multiple sub options that have been given to us.
Yes.
So those sub options are what are the namings that have been used. Whatever name has been used on that sub.
So for instance, you reuse the name leaderboard to be a subpage under analysis as well as a top page on the whole website. There's no
leaderboard on the top page. On the top page is something. Okay, submissions, I agree. There's submissions inside the analysis, but submissions on the top of the.
And you also have, if you go back to your example, you had a button on the top that said leaderboard.
Let me just. There's no leaderboard.
Oh, dashboard. Oh, sorry.
Dashboard, yeah.
Dashboard leaderboard. Excuse me. Sorry.
Okay.
Dashboard leaderboard. Okay. My mistake.
Dashboard will take
you call it dashboard. Okay. A dashboard though is a live updating thing with live data. So again, it's a.
Okay. Yeah.
But okay, I see what happened there. Okay.
And then inside the analysis, you have multiple headings. So these headings are nothing but what you have inside the analysis here.
So then the only actual naming submission clashes with submissions. So when we talk about, you started talking about a submissions service, right? I think.
So this is so service is what you actually need for this submission page. So there'll be no for this submission page there'll be a separate service, but for this dashboard page you'll have a separate service. For the profile page, which is nothing but a user page, will have a separate service. So
Okay.
those are the
So that
services.
submission service has nothing to do with submitting
Yes, correct.
with submitting a submission. Okay. Again, the naming choices here leave something to be desired. I think we should possibly try to clean that up a little bit before.
Okay. Yeah,
handoff.
I can definitely do that. I can change based on what is needed.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, these each service is basically linked to each of the component that has been actually used. The analysis service is basically for the analysis that has been uploaded to the analysis to get the card details and most of the services that you actually need for it. The API service is just to set the global base URL so that you don't have to keep changing it every time. If you want to go back to your local host, you just can change it to localhost, whatever port you're using. And then you have the dashboard service. Again, I'm sorry for the naming, but dashboard service is basically getting all the information for each of the components that you have. And then fake data service is what you actually, sorry.
So back to, so you said API service, you have the spot where you put the URL in. So this part here, you've currently got that URL. Is that the URL that's being used on the EC2?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So one thing we might want to look at, this isn't for you guys now, but I'm going to put a note for myself, is being able to actually make that use a dynamic variable. Like if I could have a way to connect like AWS secrets into that or something fun to be able to like dynamically and automatically grab whatever URL the API is at instead of having it hard coded. That could that's something for me, but I just wanted to just double check and confirm on that. Thanks.
And the fake data service is to create the fake in data that you want. Like it's all about creating just the fake data so that you can use it just to test the entire front end. You can basically remove all the APIs and use this and it'll still work. Homepage service, again, this is I didn't want it to be I didn't want it to be static, so I kept some parts dynamic. So you can actually add more functions too. So instead of this homepage, this entire thing can be dynamic. It can be the latest news that you actually have, the latest research, the latest news event. So it can be more dynamic than you possibly need. Then the submission service. This is the submission service related to the submissions tab that you have. So basically this gets the data between the amount. Suppose if you want it between the date range. So basically you can automatically just change the date and then you get the date range within which how many submissions you've done. And then the user service is where the profile page is being called. So it is being exactly related to the profile. You submit, you log in, you register. And then the validation service is nothing but whether the username is taken or not. So this has been. So that's all about the front end. If you have any other doubts, that's about it.
Thank you, Akshan.
Yeah. So I just have to make I'll just make a note. I just have to make changes for the leaderboard and add a page for the submission things.
Yes. Let's add the fields to the leaderboard, as you said, and then
the submission.
add a page for the submissions and please rename that top level tab to something else.
Yes.
So do we want to because I wrote down, I think we got 4 things and I ordered them in priority, and I want to just make sure that these are going to be right and I can share them onto the Slack channel. Priority 1, current analysis zip is a placeholder and we don't have Kirsten's example implemented. I have the link for the GitHub saved onto this note here that I can send, and we need to make the modifications to the worker to implement it. That should be priority 1, correct, Bennett?
I believe so. However, I think that's not front end, so that might not be an action item for Akshan if I'm understanding the divisions of roles and responsibilities. Is that correct, team?
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be priority 1 for the API or backend, essentially.
I believe so. As we haven't had the handoff there yet, so this is
Okay.
Right. We may
Well,
we may hear other things.
Let's see. Priority 2, public facing leaderboard needs to be more interactive with comparative data. So add in our developer group to link to the developer page, high level public metric that's different from the in-depth private view, runtime, and data requirements.
Right, which we pointed at the schema, and it was the 3 circled ones that we need to add.
Essentially
Correct. Yep, sorry, that's right.
to move. Okay, so I'll put that note in. All right. Priority 3, update submissions to be a list of rows of individual submissions. On selecting submission, redirect to a more in-depth placeholder page to hold the individual submission results.
Yep.
And I'm going to break these out by front end v back end. So I'll send the front end first, and I'll update these priorities for the front end. And then priority 4, or this would be priority 3 for the front end, fix code naming clash with submissions. The top tab submissions, but there's also submissions with the analysis need to be clearly delineated.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so let me send the front end ones over, and I'll hold off on sending the back end one.
Awesome. Thank you, Duncan.
Cool, no problem.
I hit the bar for Zoom while sharing. How do I get that bar back?
Usually if you hover either
It
at the
doesn't-
top of the
I actually am not getting it. If someone else can prevent myself from sharing, it'll be good.
Yeah, I
Let
can.
me
Yeah.
use some magic. I
thank you.
stole the share, and now I'm stopping it. There we
Thank
go.
you.
Okay.
Yay for magic powers.
Okay, maybe I'll go next for the worker part. Yeah, I think I went through person files quickly, and I think it's pretty simple to incorporate her functions with our worker, because I think it's very close to my current implementation.
Great.
Yeah, I think would be simple. I will work on that.
Yeah, I felt like we had done quite a bit of work to make things quite similar, so glad to hear
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, good to hear.
Yeah, so our worker design is just as we discussed, it will run as a daemon based on a launch template. And what the worker does would it will first get the analysis ID from the tag, and then it will load the corresponding analysis from the database and download the analysis file from the S3 bucket, and then import as a Python module. And it will create a connection with the existing SQS queue, or create a new one if it is now exist. And it will listen to the queue and get new messages from our API, and it will process the new message and run the submission. And then it will return the metrics and store in our database. So currently, my implementation is that
Can we look at the implementation? If we're going to look into that, can we look at it in code?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so maybe I can share my VS Code. Let me check. Okay, so here's the code. And you will first create a base directory, and then it will get the analysis ID from here. Is that it will first get the EC2 instance, and then get the text, and then it will find the analysis primary key, and then it will get the value. I'm not sure what we should set as default value if we cannot find that. Maybe we need execute. We need exist or set some default value. So I just set the default value as 1.
Hold on. So we're getting our analysis instance.
Yeah, so
ID.
hopefully we can get the analysis ID from the tag, and everything would work well.
So one is like a placeholder error code. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it should be a error code.
If tag key equals analysis PK, return int tag of value. Otherwise, we'd return 1. And so essentially we would need to then have on our front end, or in the API, we would need to have an error check that if we're getting 1 back, then we know that the analysis that we're trying to get isn't there. Is that what we're getting at? Essentially, like that's going to be our error. Or is that a
yeah,
default?
I think it's a default value now.
Okay, so right now it's a default, so we would need to do some updates on our get analysis here, to have more error checking for cases where we're trying to go through our resources and we're not getting it.
If everything works well, it will get an analysis ID here, and everything works well. But in case,
So what's the expected behavior by the rest of the system when line 485 fails? Like what should happen next?
I just set a default value now, but hopefully I think it should the worker should file and exist, and maybe I will mark the submission fail in the database.
So I guess this is more of a general question rather than a specific, like, what do you return? What is the expected behavior of the whole system if you can't evaluate tag value of tag? What should happen then?
I think the analysis upload would fail because you cannot spin up the worker.
Okay, let me ask more basic questions because I honestly don't know. So if that were to fail, that's a problem with our backend, not with the not with a submission, or what would cause this error? How about that? What would cause this error?
It's an error that happens when a user uploads an analysis and the worker cannot get the analysis ID from the tag. So I think you should fail the analysis upload.
So that sounds like it would be a back-end error then, because if a user is trying to do an upload and the upload fails to succeed for us, we're not going to be able to get a value for that worker, and therefore the upload would essentially be considered a failure. I'm understanding.
Can we clarify what is being uploaded here? We're uploading an analysis or a submission?
Analysis.
This is for an analysis upload.
Yeah.
Okay, this is trying to access a previously uploaded analysis, right? That's what this function is doing? Get analysis PK? No? Is that wrong?
Actually, it is a get, so it should be for something that's already been uploaded. Yes.
Right?
It is uploading a new analysis.
Well, I don't see anything here that says for any kind of like push.
Aren't we in submissionworker.py? Is not this file all about what happens when you do a submission?
Submissions-
You can see that maybe our
Oh, sorry.
backend-
Am I looking at the wrong? Sorry, I was maybe.
aren't submissions run against an analysis set, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so submissions should be have a certain amount of cross level with analysis, so it should only be a get. Yeah. Inside
So,
submission.
so Mengdi, can you go back to the function we were discussing?
Yeah.
Okay. So this function is existing in a file, right, called submissionworker.py. So submissionworker.py gets executed when exactly?
Sorry.
This file, submissionworker.py, when does it get invoked? When is this file run?
When users uploads a new analysis, and backend would spin up a new worker.
You mean when they
for
upload a submission, not an analysis? The analysis and submission.
Are we talking again? Are we talking about a submission or an analysis?
analysis.
Are you
Analysis.
sure?
Are you-
Can somebody else from the team please jump in here? Are we sure we're talking about analyses, or are we talking about, because it says submissions?
According to the name, I think it should be invoked when a submission is submitted.
Not when an analysis is uploaded.
Yeah, because analysis is just create a set of analysis, right? It's not for a single submission.
Yeah, the
Right.
analysis is our testing framework that the submission is being run against to get a result.
Yeah. So I'm I'm a little bit concerned about the fuzziness in this description that you're giving right now. So having heard that feedback, do you believe now that this file is getting run during a submission by a developer? Can we please try to use the correct roles that we've defined? So users don't have logins, they only look at things. Developers submit, they do submissions of their algorithms, and admins set up analyses. Okay? Is that
Okay.
clear?
Okay.
So the user, as what we're calling a user, will never be interacting with the backend system except to just like look at the leaderboards. So we have developers and we have admins. Developers do submissions, admins define analyses.
Okay.
So what we're looking at here is something that gets invoked when a developer does a submission. Is that correct?
Yeah, but this function will not be called when developers submit a submission. It would be called before the developer submit their algorithms.
So why are we so I'm confused why we're in submissionworker.py.
Yes, so maybe you can double check my design here. So it would be run a demo, right? So it would be spawned when admins create a new analysis. The worker would be spawned and run as a demo and listen.
Why?
To the
What
queue.
worker needs to do anything when an analysis, when an analysis is defined by an admin? I don't. Nothing needs to get done, right? You're just storing what was submitted. I mean, you have to make the new web page. I guess there's some work that needs to be done there.
Maybe Mengdi is referring to the setting up about a worker when an analysis is created.
So it's creating a worker template that it can then be referred to and used. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I believe so. The workflow here looks like we are setting up a worker to wait for the future submission.
Ah.
Yes.
Okay, and so that is this worker. So it's being saved essentially as like a it's not ECS, like an EKS image. It's just creating an image that can then be called.
No,
Or
it's a EC2 instance.
yeah, okay, close enough.
Wait, so it actually creates an EC2 instance when
so
an
the
analysis page is generated? When admins make an analysis page, we are actually creating a new EC2 instance, is that right?
Yes.
Well, so are you sure it's a regular EC2 instance or is it a container EC2 instance? Because a Docker container, while they technically run as an EC2, they are specifically making sure it's running the container specifically of the EC2, not just a regular EC2 instance.
Yeah.
They're-
Currently it's a regular EC2 instance.
Yeah, but it's running as a container in the EC2, which that's how the EKS and ECS clusters work, is that they are EC2s, but they're all running containers to make sure it's got that level of security with like the Dockerization and everything, essentially done automatically by AWS.
Yeah, but we did not implement the Docker file now. So maybe I can use Docker when integrate the backend and front end, but I did not use that.
So Duncan, am I correct here that what we're seeing is that, if we make 12, analyses as a team, that essentially what we're doing is we're generating 12 virtual machines that each one stands ready to just run its particular script?
From what has been described, that would be my understanding as well. What I would have like
Seems like
the point of like the SQS servers to be able to spin up like a Dockerized image is that we would have an inactive, inert image that's stored. So it doesn't really cost us much while it's stored. That when needed gets run, it creates its container EC2 instance essentially, and only runs for while we need it to run the analysis and to run the submission against the analysis. So if these images are created and are constantly running, that would be more of a problem. But if they're images that are kept kind of essentially inert until needed, then that would be better because then they're not eating up compute resources and they're not costing us unnecessarily. So that's something I'm not entirely sure about right now on this implementation. Do you know if we've got some more details on that, Mengdi? Are these EC2s constantly running in the background, or are they like an image essentially that's made and stored only until it needs to be called to run?
It will be keep running as a demo.
Okay, so let me make a note that
So what happens if two different people submit to the same analysis at the same time?
It will be handled by the SQS queue. So the queue would be a first in, first out queue. So
And why do we need a separate virtual machine for each analysis? Why not just one?
We just have one worker for each analysis.
Right. Why do we need a worker for each analysis? Why not just one for the whole system?
Yeah, just because we discussed with Duncan. Duncan said that we need a separate queue and worker for each analysis.
So my intent when I was saying that was utilizing it with the Docker style EKS system.
That's what I would be imagining. Yeah. So you
so-
fire it up when you need it for a
Exactly,
particular submission. So if the two people
Yeah.
submit at the same time, you fire and you fire.
Yeah,
Sorry, go
yeah.
ahead, Duncan.
Yeah, because like what I was describing, where you have your image saved on like as a Docker image, right? It's not currently running, but you've got that image. So then when you have someone do a submission that you want it to run, you hit your queue, it will spin up the container that is based off of that analysis. It will then run it, and as soon as it's done, sends the result, shuts down. And now that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. If you're queuing tasks going into a worker, then you might as well just queue for the whole site, because we're not expecting, thousands of concurrent users anyway. So, it seems like a really reasonable way to do it would be the way Duncan described, and the simple way to do it would be to have one worker. But what we have now doesn't seem to make sense, frankly.
Yeah, so that's something we're gonna have to update. To do that level of a change at this point would be huge. So, that's not something.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
That's something I'm certainly going to have to note that we're going to need to readjust, and I'm either I or however we proceed after is going to. I'm going to be extra clear in how this is going to be done.
Right. Thank you, Duncan.
Yeah. So
yeah,
Paul,
I mean, hopefully, maybe it's just that I
explain
just want to be
well.
clear in this. Hopefully it just doesn't make sense, right? To have just these machines hanging out doing nothing for like extended periods of time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
We can continue, Mind.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Maybe we go on the code part. Yeah, so after we get the analysis ID, and we would load the analysis from the S3 bucket. We first create a directory for the analysis, and then we extract. We first download the analysis zip file from the S3 bucket, and then we extract the zip ID, zip file, and install the requirements, and then import the analysis as a Python module. And then we will create the message queue, or just listen to the existing SQS queue. And then we will listen to the queue and process the new messages. And
So can you, sorry, Mendy, can you show us what you are actually have as an example analysis that gets imported as a module? Like, I know that we haven't looked at Kirsten's example. Kirsten's example isn't integrated yet, but what example have you been using?
I just showed in my documentation. You can see that the directory layout. So for each analysis, it will have requirements. It will have test annotation. It has a test data. And for the submission, it will have a min file containing the predict function. Maybe you can zoom in.
So,
Yeah, that's helpful. Okay.
and you think we can look at where this part is implemented at in the code? Or is this like pretty scattered around?
Do you mean the directly creating, or something?
So when we're calling our predict, we have like this temporary directory layout. How are we referencing and making our calls? So where in the code are we going to be interacting with this part of our layout?
It's in this function. When we process a new submission messages, we first load the message body, and then we get the analysis ID and the submission ID. And in this function, we first get the dataset path and update the status as running, and we get the annotation file, and then we call the evaluation file here. And
All right, so we're jumping
Sure.
around a little fast. Let's go to where we start with this. Where's the first part of this process? And let's kind of follow it a little slower because I feel like we're moving a little quick for it. Like as soon as I start looking at it,
Yeah.
then suddenly we're on the next part. I want to.
yeah, we can
Yeah.
look at the overview of our main function.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically we are doing some several things. The first is get the analysis ID, and we
Okay.
load the analysis as a Python module. And
Okay.
we create or listen to a existing message queue here.
So I see we've got create directory as Python package submission database directory. So that's going to be part that's interrelated with that structure we saw, or is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm seeing where that's coming in.
Wait, so that's submission database directory, not analysis database directory. Is that right?
In this function, when we're loading the analysis, it will be interact with the analysis database and import the analysis as a Python module as well.
Okay, so the analysis is going to the directory as Python package at the top
Yeah.
there on 496.
496.
It just create a base directory. It's a compute. It's a base directory, and we have two subdirectories, one for the analysis and one for the submission. And
So it gets
in
set
the-
up it gets set up at the beginning when you make the analysis, when an admin makes the analysis, and it's going to make a directory on a machine that's populated with that analysis data and Python script.
Yeah.
Later, when somebody does a submission for that analysis, does that then go in and update this? How does that work?
We will not update the analysis part because
When do
this-
submissions get added into this directory is my question, because right now it looks like it's all happening at once, but that doesn't seem to jive with my understanding of how
it will be
these things will be invoked.
Yeah, when a new message arrives, and we will process the message, and we will create new directories for the new submissions, and we will download and extract the submission file from the S3 bucket.
Okay,
Great.
so this main function that we're seeing here, this gets invoked. That function gets run when an admin creates the analysis, right? That's when that gets run, and then that's it, and then
Yeah.
it sits there and it waits.
Yeah.
Okay, so there won't be submissions at that point. There can't be any submissions until the page is made, right? So,
Yeah.
but we're seeing lines of code in the main here that are looking for submissions, right?
Yeah, it will be looking for the submission.
Submission
No.
database directory, line 513. Or is that just creating the base directory? Oh, got it.
Here, yeah, it's a base directory. So you can check.
Okay, so first you're
the-
creating the root directory, then in line 508,
Yeah.
you're populating the analysis subdirectory, and then in 513 you're creating the subroot directory for all of the analyses that will later be uploaded.
Yeah.
And then anytime somebody comes along and adds a submission, the way things are
Yeah.
currently set up, it goes ahead and it makes a new directory on this machine
Yes.
for all time.
Yeah.
So we're not storing submissions in a database and calling them when it's time to execute them. We're writing them to disk on EC2? That's, I mean,
Yeah,
disk on
we-
EC2 is not stable, right?
Oh, we read the information in our database, and we just load and retrieve the information from our database on the worker on this EC2 instance and run the evaluation and return the result to the database.
So then what's the cleanup after that process runs? Does that information that's pulled in when you run, does it write to that EC2 and then does it have a cleanup after that like deletes it to save space on it? Or what happens after it runs?
Yeah, the subdirectories would be removed after the evaluation finish.
Okay, so that would still save space. So with the permanently running system, that's okay.
Okay, so it's sitting there, it's got a blank submission subdirectory, and then all of a sudden something comes in its queue, copies it into that subdirectory, runs it, returns the results, and then cleans out the submission subdirectory. Is that right?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, perfect.
Cool.
Yeah, so do we need to go to the details of the processing? It is here, the delete submission data directory.
Okay,
Okay, yep, there that is. Cool.
got it. Yeah, I think in your diagram that you are referencing, that your nice documentation page, I believe it just shows it as if it's a bunch of submissions, which was part of where the confusion came from. It looked like you just kind of were adding them there. So yeah,
Okay.
got it. If that detail was in the other documentation, I'm sorry that I missed it. But okay, no, that makes sense. So the submissions are just existing in a database and they get copied in just for the analysis and then deleted.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
call the evaluate function here, and we just have the submission output, and we just save the result into our database here.
Okay. Submission result equals submission output.
We update our status and it saves. Cool.
And so whatever the admins decide to put in those evaluation scripts and have them return will be compatible with this. Is that right? Because this is just going to dump whatever comes back from that, right?
So do me I mean to do what?
So the submission output, I'm wondering how tightly coupled submission output is to any particular schema.
JSON.dumps submission output. So how does that part work is essentially, I think.
Right, so I guess I'm curious about some of these details. So you're running a submission, but again, you're going to, yes, evaluate a submission against the pre-existing analysis script that's there. And as we've said, so what are you assuming that analysis script is returning currently? I'm curious how I'm actually curious how this links into what gets eventually displayed on the leaderboard, and then what gets displayed on that analysis specific subpage that we were talking about with Akshan.
Yeah, so currently I'm assuming that the evaluation script would return a JSON object.
A JSON object.
Yeah, so we can dump the JSON as a string and save into our database. And you can you can write anything you want in the JSON object, and I will not care about that, and just dumps as a string and save in our database. And when front end have a calls for to our APIs to retrieve our result, we can just return the JSON string to the front end, and it can resolve the JSON object.
So the leaderboard front end will be looking for predefined fields in these JSON blobs to link that will have the keys that it's looking to display. So if the leaderboard wants to display runtime, you need to have a key here that includes runtime. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So we need to make sure that all of this is adequately documented. Hopefully it is. So then, Duncan, am I correct then that assuming we as admins have decided, okay, leaderboards are always going to have these, 3 metrics that we want to display, then any analysis is going to have include that as a starting point, and then that kind of rich result is whatever you want to put within whatever other fields in that blob, and we can use any of those fields to do custom analysis specific, results pages. Is that right?
Yeah, we should actually, so utilizing the JSON system, it's actually not too difficult to implement it, so that way we can have, because having a predetermined format is immensely helpful in programming for this kind of thing. So having the key fields that we know are going to be for leaderboards, that should be a standard. Right. And then if we want to have that standard, then from there, delving off and saying any additional keys with values that we add on, that can be stuff that can be automated to just iterate over the JSON object, pull all those additional and upload that information into the detailed analysis page as just additional data. And we could even come up with a system of adding like additional subkeys within those values. So like the key could have another object. That object could say the word chart. Now I know we want a chart, and then I can take that data and you know what I'm talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Programmers do. I don't need to spell it out.
Okay. No, that sounds great. Yeah. Thanks for going over that, Mengi, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Perfect.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So after that, I will incorporate custom files into the worker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And just and making sure I'm on the same page. So Duncan, we will think about how to manage these worker resources kind of down the line a little bit. Is that right?
Yeah. Version not alpha, so beta, I guess. We'll get a redesign for that. So that's something I've got noted on my notes.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you.
So Mondi has finished his part, and I will go through my account part very quick because it's only 30 minutes, and I think my part is not very complicated, and so I will share my screen here. Okay, so from the account part, so we have few to start with URLs. We have few 4 URLs mainly for register, login, and list of accounts. It would not be used very likely by users, but maybe by user domain or something else. So this account and the +UID is for a user's profile to show details of user information. So here is the implementation of every API. So when we register a new user, we will put in the username, email, something list here, and to create new accounts to save in the database. And logging, for now we just do simply like plain text for the password, and we just do a simple verification for the password thing. And if it's not equal one, and just return the error. For the account detail part, listed a few REST APIs here. It's get, put. Put is for update a specific data field for a user. For example, maybe last name, maybe first name, Tabata or something else. And delete is to delete a user account. But for now, we don't verify whether it's a user or admin. So a user can call the delete API, but I think we should put more limitation on this API after that. So I also have a collection to display the data we send to the server, and the data server returns back. So for now, I adopted UUID for user ID, but code on Mondee's part, he still use the int for the user ID. So I think it will be a future to do to cooperate the int and UUID. I think maybe we need to update the int to UUID thing. And the login part, we just put user and password. The server will return a UUID to the front end, and so front end can do further things to this user. And if a login, this, as I said, this API is for admin. It can pull out all the user has been registered. It can also achieved by a backend. The main user API user interface provided by Django framework. So the put thing is to update a user's data field, a specific user data field. When we put user name and password and the field that we want to update it, so it will reflect it in a response. And I also developed the submission detail page and the leaderboard page, but it's not on this. It's not on this branch. Let me switch back to this one. So not sure Mondee has covered this. Let me see. So for the analysis, we will have a leaderboard page. So for now, I just filtered the leaderboard, filtered the submission which has the same analysis ID for the analysis set. And then for now, I didn't do the pagination for this API, and also I didn't do any limitation. I just show all the submissions we had for this analysis. So if we want to add more functionality like pagination or top 10 or something else, we can do further constructions here to modify this response data. And also the submission details. So for the data, I returned the submission ID, analysis ID, user ID, and algorithm, and this result field. They are all in a string and put in a JSON format. So that's basically all the things from my side. I documented those APIs in our documentation. We have few on this branch for now, but I would encourage our team members to add your documentation on this branch, so we will have a whole collection for that. Yes.
How's the branch merges been going? I was trying to play with a little bit of that myself, and I saw some of the issues you were challenged with.
Yeah, I think it's a big issue, to be honest, because I think my branch 26 is based on Mondee's branch. However, since the user ID thing and other conflicts, if I merge my branch to the main previous to his changes will reflect it on my pull request. But if I merge back to Mondee's, currently Mondee's branch is a very, very large branch. So I personally don't know how we're gonna do with this, because apparently our practice is not confronted to the Git branch strategy we have previously. So
yeah, I noted that one thing that tends to help prevent this is doing regular updates to and then pulls back from develop. And so since there has been a lot of development run quite individually into each of these branches, that has resulted in a very, very large and now very difficult to resolve chain of differences in commit history. So this is certainly a great learning point to have now learned and realized this, and it will be helpful to make sure to reinforce to make regular merges into and then pulls back from develop to try and prevent such a huge backlog of changes. For us moving forward from here and now, I think this is going to be fun. I would focus on getting the fixes in that we've discussed so far. Merging all of this is a nightmare I'll likely tackle myself, because I was starting to look into it, and it's if we've got a little bit of time next week, I can meet with some team members and we can try and sort through it, because I would like to have your input as having directly worked on it where I've got conflicts. But that's
Can I jump in?
yeah, one suggestion is like we can have a new branch and cherry pick all our finished progress to a new branch to make that branch clean and comprehensive.
Yeah, if you could put that together and have that work, that would also be a potential solution. But yeah, getting this sorted, it would be it'd be fun. I was trying to do it, and it was
So I think actually that might be a good place to just for a second shift the conversation to follow-up meetings. So we are at the end of our scheduled 2 hours today. We did not have a chance to hear from Tomo. So Tomo, did you have much to present as well?
Yeah. For showing the test coverage percentage, yeah, it could be quick, but for showing the code walkthrough, it will take some, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
About 10 minutes or so.
Sure. I cannot stay longer. I originally said an hour. I ended up staying the whole 2 hours because it seemed like a good use of time. I will have to step out now. If you all want to continue now, please feel free to do so. But I would, before I leave, I think I'd like to talk about our plan for meeting on Friday and our plan for any follow-up meetings next week. So I know that our current meeting time, our standard scheduled time on Friday, does not work this week. Is that correct? There's a conflict?
There's not a conflict. We have the showcase in the evening.
Oh, actually, the Pittsburgh students will have
Mhm.
their, yeah, it's exactly the same time. 3:30 p.m. Eastern is when the showcase event starts here for about 90 minutes.
Okay. Right. Okay. So then we will need to move it, it sounds like. So I think the preference from the team was to move it to earlier in the day. Is that right? My morning is open on Friday, so if you can let me know what time works, that would be great. I can move our normal meeting time.
Okay, I can share the common slots then for Friday morning.
Let's just knock it out now, guys. Come on, there's only a handful of us. What time works for you guys?
For me, I'm good with early mornings. I'll be free by 9 to 12, anytime.
Yeah, I'm
Any-
free
everybody
in the
else?
morning on Friday. Yeah, sorry.
Tomo?
I'm
what'd you say?
available. I'm available Friday morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yuvi,
Yes, I will be available for Friday morning.
Mengdi and Akshin.
I'll be available too. Yeah, same as me.
Okay, so just to confirm, every single team member is available all morning until 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. So let's go for, I think 10 a.m. Pacific would be my preference. Do we need more than an hour, do we think, reasonably?
If we're just wrapping up with Tomo's test coverage and maybe some discussion about AWS itself, I think we should be able to easily finish that within the hour. Do we
And a
have any
discussion
additional
about, sorry, the last additional topic would be the prototype with Kirsten's code.
Yes.
Okay, so we're comfortable with an hour on Friday then.
Akshin, maybe we'll target on sharing the fixes regarding front end as well by Friday, hopefully.
And Sujata brought up a good point about non-code artifacts handoff.
Yeah, just surfacing that in case there's anything there.
That's around the documentation, Sujata.
Right. And it may be that most versions of most of them have been seen and reviewed to some degree, but the latest as of this week is only known best to the team. So I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, on that, most of the documents are in place. Based on today's discussion, we need to update our entity diagram, like the schema diagram, we need to update that. And yeah, there is like 1 or 2 more documents which we'll share. Basically, we need to just collate it at the one place. And yeah, everything else is in place. So we'll share that document folder as well.
Akshan's front end diagram? That was fantastic. I would love to have that.
Yes, yeah. Call out that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and schedule it for an hour and a half on Friday, just in case. There's a number of things that we're accumulating here to discuss. So we will start with Tomo's code handoff update, and then I think talk about the Kirsten stuff, and then move on to the other items that we identified, including the handoff of the non-code artifacts. Next week, do we need another meeting? Should we go ahead and schedule for next week as well? Do we need a meeting the following week still, do we think?
And if we've got everything done on that Friday, and we're happy with it, I would be more than happy to say sign off and happy holidays if we're 100%, unless anyone has any alternative considerations.
No, I agree with Duncan.
Okay, then we will hope we don't need it, and we'll see how things go on Friday morning. Hopefully we knock everything else out, and then if there's any remaining items, we will see if we need something the following week, knowing that some of the team members will not be available. I know that Yui, for instance, is not available the first part of next week. As it turns out, I'm not available the first part of next week either. I will be available Thursday, Friday next week. But I may not need to be there. So again, we'll see how things go on Friday. That sound good?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
If I recall, absolute sign off is required by CMU by the 15th at the latest. So that would be that Thursday. So if we do absolutely have to have one, then Thursday would be like the latest it could be.
And in theory, I would be available that all day Thursday as well, if my presence was needed on that day for a final sign off. Okay, I will drop off now. Up to you all whether you. Well, it sounds like we decided to shift Tomo to Friday and not stay on now. Is that correct? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
We're finishing up on Friday. So
Great.
Yep.
And I'll stop the recording. Thank you, guys.